wonderful group of ladies that are here to support Sarah.
Such a good person. I hope this doesn't go on YouTube or something, because I say stuff that maybe I shouldn't say. Ron had one requirement. His funeral or celebration of life would be on a Monday because Willow Creek's closed. Otherwise, no one would have showed up. And so he's proud of that, and he had it planned like he has everything planned. That's going to be bad. The eulogy will be half of what it was before. Thank you. Let us begin today with a prayer. Bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we come together today to honor the life of Ron Hanson, a life well lived. We give thanks for the time we had with Ron as a wife, a child, a grandchild, and numerous friends. We thank you for the impact he had on our lives, for his wit, his integrity, dependability, for all he brought to Willow Creek. We know it is a sad day also. We pray for peace and comfort for his family and all his friends. Amen. I asked Christy and Eric Thomas to put together a eulogy. You saw half of it fly there, and but this says everything. Let me read it to you. Ron Hanson was born on November 2nd, 1953 in Waterford, Michigan. To Kenneth and Dorothy Hanson, he grew up in Pontiac and worked his way through college caddying, which he started at age 11. I've never seen him carry a bag. He graduated from the University of Michigan in 1975 with a degree in accounting. Now you Daytona people understand why he audits every scorecard that comes in, because none of you can add, and he could. Ron helped a friend move to Houston in August of 1976. He was told that this time of the year was the worst weather and the worst it ever gets here. Well, he went home, packed his car, and came back. He said it beats the snow, so he came and he became a Texan. Ron and Sarah met when they were both working at the Hyatt Regency in downtown Houston. Shortly after, they settled down and got married and started a family. Christy was born in 1980, Eric 1982, and Thomas in 1986. Days before Thomas was born, they moved to Northampton, where they would raise their family. Ron and Sarah started Summit Supply in 1982, where all three children work today, continuing the legacy that they all started, or they couldn't find employment elsewhere. In June of '85, Ron and Sarah, this is funny. I know what's funny. This is funny. In June of '85, Ron and Sarah attended a charity auction where Ron bid a couple of times on a membership at Willow Creek. Ron dropped out, but Sarah continued to bid, even when Ron said it's not worth it. The rest is history. It is believed that Ron played more rounds at Willow Creek over the next 35 years than anyone ever has. He played golf in 23 states, 16 foreign countries, 3 U.S. territories, and on 4 continents, and Oklahoma. Ron greatly enjoyed golf trips with Sarah, but also those with his buddies at Willow Creek to various destinations: Horseshoe Bay, Cabo, Ruidoso, and Kansas, just to name a few. In 2010, here's where it gets happy, Ron became a grandpa and was quickly given the name Bappa. He was a wonderful Bappa to his 5 grandchildren, Jack, Olivia, Carter, Ella, and Carly. He loved watching them swim, fishing with them, reading with them, and working puzzles with them. I'll be remiss not to mention Thomas and Lindsay. Maybe there'll be grandchildren on that one too. I mean, that's just a thought. No big pressure, no pressure, but we got 300, 400 people watching. Ron truly loves spending time with Sarah, his kids, his in-laws, and grandkids. They have all expressed how grateful they were to have been able to spend a week together in Mexico this past Thanksgiving, making memories they will treasure forever. Ron taught his kids what it means to be a loving parent, a loyal friend, and a great spouse. He showed them how to succeed in business, in friendship, and in love. He worked to live, not the other way around, and taught his kids to do the same. I first met Ron back in 1997. I joined Willow Creek. There's 4 or 5 people you needed to know at Willow Creek in 1987. Jimmy Hawkins is here, Lou Farah is here, Brett Baskey's here, and Robert Collins, who is not here with us. He passed away in the last year. There's 4 or 5 of them that were the godfathers of Willow Creek. If you made them mad, you're in trouble. You did not upset that group. Brett was a whiner, and Ron would be the mentor and tell him not to be so mad. And these two would fight, and they would debate. And I've watched those two debate forever. I don't think anybody ever won, but they all made good arguments. I thought they would both be good lawyers, but neither could take a pay cut. Sarah and I tried to pare down who's going to speak today. And, 75, 100 people want to speak, so you can't do that. So I came up with, I thought, was a very, very good idea. What we would do is we would take the 7 or 8, not excluding family, 7 or 8 biggest sandbaggers at Willow Creek to speak. Now, I know you're not going to see Tony Freeman or David Meany, but the rest of them, you're going to recognize that they're well-deserved as sandbaggers. So I'm going to call each one of them up. They're going to give you a few minutes of memories they have of Ron. We're going to start with Kevin McQueen. Somebody's already said, "Oh my God."
Thanks, Ray. I think I should pick this up, buddy.
Did I knock that down?
Hello, everybody. Good to see you.
Hey, Kev.
Hey. So, I've got a lot of stories to tell about Ron. Some of them I can tell, some of them I can't. But I got one I can, and it's the first time I met Ron. The golf pro at Tomball Country Club, when I was a member, decided that the pro at Willow Creek is going to bring a guest and play in our game, Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever it was. And there were 8 of us. Ended up playing in an 8-some, but that's the first time I met Ron. He shows up. He's got a mullet haircut, and he looked like he just got off the beach. And then Brett, he shows up. He's got a mustache. I don't think he was dyeing his hair then, but I don't know, maybe. And he kind of looked like an adult movie star. So I told the guys, I said, these guys we may be in trouble here. So we played like 27 holes. And we got done, and those 2 boys from Willow Creek got their butts tore up. And Ron never said anything, but that look, and a very look of frustration. So we had a few beers, and I said, Ron, we do this every Tuesday or Wednesday. And he said, I'm not. I said, okay. No problem, I understand. So a month later, I joined Willow Creek, and that was the best move I ever made. Best friends, just a good time, and some of the old friends are here today. Really appreciate y'all coming. That's about all I got to say.
Thanks. That's the first time anybody's ever clapped for Kevin McQueen. Okay, our next speaker, Mr. Allstate. He's got a message to share with you, but he also wanted me to tell you that afterwards he's going to have a little table back there, and he's going to be selling term and whole life if you'd like to share some time with him. Mr. Allstate, Tom Harden.
Well, thank you. I just want to say it's an honor to be chosen to come up here. You know, Ron was a really, really good friend of mine. And so I'm going to first start the story off with, I know Sarah wants to hear. For some reason, I'm labeled as the worst gambler at Willow Creek. And Ron took full advantage of that. Our last bet was the Notre Dame-Alabama football game. So we know how that turned out. I'm going to be wearing, when Sarah tells me, Alabama Crimson Tide playing around the golf. So anyway, the first time I met Ron was in the late 90s, and I walked up to the coat shop and I looked over and saw this tall, blonde-haired, tan guy on the putting green. And then the next time I went, same thing. Every time I went, Ron was on the putting green. And finally, after getting to know Ron, I finally asked him, how do you get to play golf every day? What do you do to play every day? And his words that I'll never forget are, if you can't get your work done by lunch, then you're doing something wrong. And playing Daytona with Ron, I got to learn, just like Ray said, his integrity, fairness, and honesty. And one of the stories I recall, we were playing Daytona, and he's on my team along with Mike Dorman, and if anybody knows Willow Creek, on 14 there's a big bush next to the green, and I hit my tee shot over there. So I'm trying to figure out how to get my ball out from under the bush, and Mike Dorman walks over and pulls back the branch, and sure enough, I had a much better shot towards the green. About that time, I looked over, and just this overwhelming feeling of someone watching, and Ron's on the cart path standing there with his arms crossed going. And Mike let go of the branch, and I picked up for a double bogey. And the other real good story that I remember, Ron was in the men's locker room, and the lottery had just came out, and that was years and years ago. And someone was telling, Ron was talking about the lottery tickets that he got. And I'll never forget someone in the locker room said, Ron, if you hit the lottery tonight, today might be the last half day you ever have to work. And I'll never forget that. But Ron was really, really a true good friend. He, many, many times he would ask about my family, my children, how they're doing, how's my business. And Ron was somebody that if you were to call at 2 in the morning and need help, there's no doubt Ron was that kind of person. We truly lost a very, very, very good friend. I'm sorry for your loss. I couldn't imagine how it is. There's no doubt everybody here could say that he was, simply put, a good person, a good man. So, thank you.
And they're running a special on whole life. The next one, there's 4 or 5 great, great, nice people at Willow Creek. If you look around, I don't think many of them are here. But of those 4 or 5, one of them's Tim Nutt. He's the nicest guy. I don't know why he joined Willow Creek. He doesn't fit in. But he's a wonderful guy. We're proud to have him here. Tim Nutt.
So I was fortunate enough, I think Scotty, he introduced me to the club and he said, this is one of the guys you got to meet. And he said, of all the people out here, he said, he's the one. He's not loud. He doesn't lose things like basking. He doesn't talk near as much as Ray. By the way, this will be the cleanest conversation you're going to hear about any of us. So we're at least thankful for that. But, everybody tells a story. There's an underlying story here. His honesty, his caring. There was no gray with Ron. If it's on a route, it's on a route. If it's an ant, there's no ants at Willow Creek, by the way. But, you knew where you stood. He was never vocal about it. He didn't need to be. Like Tom said, he just would nod his head. So you always knew where you stood with that man. And I came to admire who he was as an individual. And everybody here, a lot of us are connected through golf. Golf's such a wonderful game. But for me, my story that I want to share with y'all is on January 5th, because Eric texted me and said, Dad's passed. And so I was on the putting green. I said, we're going to do this today. And I said we, because he could putt so good back in the day. And I always got on, I hope you got your 1.5 million from him, by the way, but that's a different story. But, just to be around that. But on that day, I stood on the putting green. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, blue, and I think the whole group, the whole Daytona group, that was on our mind that day. So I think we started on, I couldn't remember, Tad was late, so I don't remember if we started on 1 or 3, but I'm the best 90 golfer at Willow Creek. So I birdied number 3, and I thought, Dad, man, we did it. I burned it on 4. I made like an 80-footer on 6. On 7, on 6, I 3-putted. I was mad. I get to number 7. It's into the wind. It's a back flag, 195 yards. A guy hits a 4-iron, didn't make it. So I thought, well, I hit it. It just soared in the air, hits once, bounce, rolls, and it's in the hole. So now I'm a birdie, and I aced the hole. So I texted Eric. He didn't believe me at first that it was me, but it really wasn't me. So then I birdied 9, and I looked up in the sky, and I said, Ron, I'm heavy as it is. That's 9 holes. That's great 9. I said, you can go watch someone else, because he's always with us. And that day I shot a 75, and wherever Chris is here, I did not, and all of you, I did not enter the score, because I played as a twosome that day. But that just, if you look around and at the people here, they have nothing but love and admiration. And for me personally, and to the family, I say to you, and I would hope that my kids could say this about me, is that I'm a better man because of Ron Hanson. And I thank that he's in part of my life. And we will always remember that man. And I thank y'all.
I've got 2 things to say about that. He said he's the best 90 golfer and shoots 75 and has a hole-in-one and 4 birdies. And then he doesn't turn the score in. Well, how does he count that hole-in-one if it's not official? I don't think he had a hole-in-one. Tim, that was great. Thank you. All right. We've been bored with stories about golf and men. Now we finally get our only female speaker today. Jessica, who's married to Eric, and that's where it started. Thank you for being with us today. Okay, can you do it?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it.
I wouldn't be his daughter-in-law if I couldn't.
Hey, I want to say this. She's also the mother of Carly and Olivia.
You got it right.
The other 3 are...
That's good math.
That's right.
Yeah, okay. Forgive me, I get really nervous, and putting words into somebody who is one of your favorite people is incredibly hard. I'm going to start with, since everybody's doing first meetings, my first meeting of my father-in-law, who I'll call Ron one time since he's padre to us, was in Stillwater when Eric and I were still up there, and he was up for homecoming, and I was supposed to go meet him for dinner. I was so nervous, and I walk into a very uncomfortable, awkward situation, and Ron's there, and he just has this ability that when Ron focused on you, you felt like you were the only thing in the world at that moment. And the respect from a man like that, like it truly did, like I always think about my first meeting with him, the way he did that, and he turned his whole body to me, and the rest of that day was about me and getting to know me, and no matter what else happened at that table. And I truly appreciate that, because it was very indicative of the man that he was and the son that he raised. Going into that, as I got fortunate to become a Hanson, Padre and Madre, we joke about, Donna and I always laugh about winning the lottery to become a Hanson, but it's better than that, because there's no sleaze element to it. You're not playing the odds, you're not doing this. It's, you sit and you just say, what did I do to deserve this? How did I get so lucky to come into a family who blurs the lines of in-laws and loves so unconditionally? And then when I see Ron and Sarah, I understand it, because they're my first true example of a very loving partnership and marriage, and two people who love and just enjoyed their time together. And then you raised 3 incredible children after that, that have instilled that in all of you, and you live that every day. And I see it, and I know that he was hard as nails at times, and working for him wasn't easy, but everything he was doing, he was so forward thinking. He was preparing you for what was to come, and he knew that. I'll hurry, I'm sorry. So that leads into this last fall, and after getting the diagnosis, Joseph really worded this well, and I hope I'm not stealing something you're gonna say, but we were all praying for a miracle. And I told Eric, Ron's like Leonidas. He was fighting a battle that it was already lost, but he held the past, and he gave us Thanksgiving, and those memories that we got at Thanksgiving were so perfect. It healed things I think we don't even knew needed to be healed. It reconnected us in so many ways, and I know deep down that that was what he was doing. I'm too stubborn to believe otherwise. But I will say one last thing, because we've all shared so many tears through all of this. And Scotty McManus, if everyone can probably relate to this. Hold on, sorry, my face thingy isn't working. Okay, this is a passage I've been reading over nonstop since we've lost Ron. And it's fitting that it comes from an American Horror author, because I'm awful. But it's by Washington Irving, and it says, "There's a sacredness in tears. They are not the mark of weakness, but of power. They speak more eloquently than 10,000 tongues. They are the messengers of overwhelming grief, of deep contrition, and unspeakable love." And I think after seeing everyone here today and watching our family grieve over this, that really rings true. And I just want to say I love you, Ron, and thank you for everything.
If you were nervous and you did that, I'd like to see you when you're not. That was fabulous. Here's what I heard from her. Eric, you can stay out late, do whatever you want. She thinks she got a catch. I say, Willow Creek, midnight every night, buddy. That's what I heard. That's what I heard. Okay, our next guy has had his hands on more people in this room right here than maybe anybody but Doug Atherley. Dr. Murillo has treated us all. I don't know what part of the body he treats, but he was all over all of you. I got to travel with George and Donna and Ron and Sarah, and we went to a few places. One I recall is Barton Creek. Don't go to Barton Creek with George Murillo. That's Austin. That's his home. He's a UT guy. And so there was alcohol that night. There was lots of alcohol that night. Too much alcohol that night. And I felt like the only thing I forgot to bring with me was a bail bondsman. George was going to get us all arrested. But George, you're the best, buddy. You're still upright. You're doing great. Come on, buddy.
You got it, Doc.
I'm glad so many people are here for Ron's eulogy. it was an honor and a gift to be a friend of Ron Hanson. I was by no means his best friend, because Ron gave all his friends his best. I'm just going to go over some things that we did through the years. I first met Ron in probably 1985. He was playing a match play with Worm, James Moncrief, and I just joined him as just playing with him. And after the match, which James won pretty handily, James told Donna and I, he says, "We got a new fish at Willow Creek." But the thing James didn't realize is that he and I have been always the fish. We had a Thursday game at that time, because it was Moncrief, his brother, Al Feltus, a bunch of the old guys that aren't here anymore. We'd play all day on Thursday and play poker at night, all night, some nights. But that was a great time. The Thursday games grew, so we'd have 3, 4, 5 groups, and it just grew and grew. And most of this was on Brett had a lot to do with this. Brett formed our games, started Daytona. We used to bingle, bangle, bongle, and do all sorts of crazy games. 2-man bets, 4-man bets. It was crazy. But Ron was instrumental in making an everyday game, because he played every day. He was out there every day, half a day, and he took the Daytona game and made it a competitive game, a fair game, where everybody participated, and it still goes on today, 35 years later. There were other people involved in that, but Ron was a big influence. Ron and Sarah and Donna and I traveled a lot extensively. Donna thinks that, Sarah thinks that we probably took more trips together than anybody, although it was a lot of trips and a lot of fun. We were overserved all over the world. Ron always kept an eye on Donna, because she was the bad one of the group. Donna loved Ron, and Ron loved her and took care of her, and always took up for her. As a physician, I feel like I need to apologize for Ron's early death. You know, cancer of the pancreas is really, really bad, and the treatment is not good at all. And he left us too soon. 66, I just don't see that. It's been many years I've dealt with cancer, many years, and it's always, you just feel helpless when this happens. But one day we'll figure it out, and people have a little bit better experience and maybe be able to overcome it. But it's a real loss at such a young age. All we can do is deal with the sadness and the loss. We can appreciate Ron as a caring individual. He did wonderful things for all of us. On a more pleasant note, this reminds me of my little granddaughter, who's a wonderful little granddaughter. She's 5 years old, and she goes up to every little girl, every person that she meets, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 10-year-olds, and she says, "My name is Violet. Do you want to be my friend?" And that's where Ron was. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murillo. Okay. The pride of the University of Texas, we thought was George Murillo. Oh, no. No, no. This guy played golf at Texas. He was great. He now belongs to every club within 100 miles of here. If there's a game that he can make money at, he'll join that club. If there's a Calcutta coming up, he'll join back. He'll be ready to go. He's taken more money from you all, and you all like him and think he's a great guy, but he takes your money. Do you understand that? He baits you and baits you. Well, anyway, here's Brett Snortland.
Thanks. Ron would disagree because he was on my Daytona team all the time. So unfortunately, I wrote some things down to prevent eye contact so I can get through this for y'all today. I had the pleasure of meeting Ron in 1997 when I joined Willow Creek. Ron went out of his way to make me feel welcome. I am guessing Ron and I have played over 200 rounds together, Daytona, golf trips, Carlton Woods, etc. You know, one of my 3 or 4 clubs that Ray mentioned. And Carrie didn't know that until now, so thank you. You can tell a lot about a person on the golf course. No matter how Ron was playing, he always showed class, character, and integrity. It was never about him, and always making sure we're having a good time. 24 years of golfing together, I never heard him give excuses, no matter the situation, and always made people feel comfortable with a positive encouragement. My father taught me at a young age that when you're no longer here, no one's gonna give a shit how good you were. How good you were. They're gonna care how fun you were to play with, and Ron was a lot of fun to play with. He was always a true pleasure, true class, and made sure that everybody else had fun on the golf course. Ron was instrumental for what Daytona is today, as others have mentioned. It's a game for all, and as far as I'm concerned, it's Ron's rack. Ron was not only just a good friend, he was a mentor and a father figure. Ron was a wonderful husband, father, grandparent, and friend. Family was very important to him. And you can tell when you look at his 3 beautiful children, Christy and Eric and Thomas, they're wonderful people. Sarah and Ron both have much to be proud of. So I want to tell a quick funny story that is funny and also tells a lot about Ron. Not that long ago, we're playing golf at Willow Creek, and he's got on these ugly new shoes that he had bought with this red A on them. And now I didn't know if that was Arkansas or Alaska, but whatever. Well, Ron made a comment on the first tee. He says, "Damn, these shoes are tight," but never heard a word from him after that. And I'm riding in the cart with him as I usually did, and we get to 14, and he can't take it anymore. He takes these shoes off, and he had forgotten to take the stuffing out of the toe. So he was wearing a size 8. But he never said a word. He didn't bitch. He didn't say I'm playing bad because he knew he was going to catch some shit from us for what he had done. But he did it, and that just says a lot about Ron. And there's so many stories I could tell, probably not in this group, but that was one that comes to mind. And Ron, I know, if I know you, you're up there right now working on a way to get my distance back off the tee, and I appreciate that. I love you, buddy, and you'll be missed but never forgotten.
That's a funny story about Alabama. I know that when Ron and Sarah would leave Texas to go to Alabama, it would increase the IQ of both states. Anyway, our next speaker is Farmer Bill. Bill Phillip goes back, he's traveled, but more air miles on golf with Ron than probably anybody. They traveled a bunch to England and Scotland and wherever else they went, or they told their wives that's where they went. Bill is a great guy. We've known him forever. He's faking some kind of surgery he had. I mean, if you're going to have a surgery, get it done right. You don't use a cane. Come on, Billy. Bill Phillip.
Thank you all for coming. I know he would be very proud of the turnout today. Ray said something about sandbaggers, and you've heard from them all now. Unfortunately, I wasn't ever good enough to be a sandbagger. I wasn't even good enough to throw my clubs. The first time I met Ron was a Daytona game. I'd taken some lessons from Brett when we just joined Willow Creek. And he said, we have a little game at 1 o'clock each afternoon. Why don't you come around? I'll put you on my team, introduce you to the guys, and we'll see how it goes. Everything was fine. I got over there, and my cart partner was Nick. Hanging out of his bag was the half-gallon of Glenlivet. Already in the glove compartment was his Bloody Mary mix and vodka, and a drink had already been made. He said, Bill, would you like to have a drink? I said, I tell you what, I'm not good enough to throw clubs and I can't drink while I play golf. So Ron was on the team the first time I'd ever met him. Go around, we read the scorecards, and at the end he says, well, Brett's team owes $250. I thought, well, there were 5 of us, that's not ridiculous. And then Ron said, no, that's a man. And I thought, well, what a way. I knew from then on, being on Brett's team was the kiss of death. So I want to tell you that the Daytona game has gone worldwide. And we talked about this day a little bit, and a couple of things came to mind. I know he's traveled with lots of guys from the club. We've gone to Cabo, we've gone to Horseshoe Bay, Ruidoso, Kansas. And one of the things he remembers most is a trip that we took to Cabo. And we were the last group of, there was probably 16 on that trip, the last group of the Daytona group. And Kevin had a putt on the last hole. It's about 5 foot straight up the hill. And he missed it. Well, it made a big difference. To Kevin, he just took his putter, walked off the green, walked over to the cliff, and his putter set a message, I mean a record for airtime. Because not only was it 200 feet up, but he threw it all the way to the water. The funny thing was that after we looked around, Joe Pierce was going to go down the cliff and try to get it back. He said, well, that's a $300 putter. So, the Daytona has gone as far as Dubai. We made some friends with Ernie Els, and Ron and I had been invited to his opening of his signature golf course in Dubai. We knew a bunch of his friends, so they took 8 guys, we took 8 guys, and we had a Ryder Cup Daytona. So we played around, and when it was all said and done, everybody was over at the welcoming ceremony and congratulating everybody else. Well, 16 of us were around the corner in the tent reading the scorecards. And as you all well know, Ron just says, just read them to me. And then when it was all said and done, he said, well, Ernie's guys owe us $20 each. they all looked like, well, how did you figure that out? And then Jim Kinney, who was Ernie's general manager, said, that's the way he does it. And I'm telling you, if you do it again, it may get worse. So the first Daytona that we ever took overseas, I got a call one day from a man named Billy. A lot of you know him. He's a friend of ours that was kind of like the Ray Donovan of Deutsche Bank when my brother was over there. Kind of like a fixer, more so if you wanted reservations or upgrades on miles or get tickets to anything. So he called me about 10 days before the British Open in 1999, and he said, we've got a chance to have the first 3 groups off of the old course at St. Andrews when the Open is just 45 minutes up the road at Carnoustie. I said, well, I'm in. He said, we have one more open spot. Do you have a friend you'd like to bring? So, you know who that friend was. And so we got there. It was quite an eclectic group. Ernie's general manager was one of the guys. I think the leading all-time scorer of the New Jersey Devils in the hockey was one of the guys. And we just had a great time. And the whole thing was funny because it was set up for Tony Blair. That's how we got to Tony Blair, who was the Prime Minister of England at the time, the exchequer of the German bank, and some prominent German soccer player. And that's how we got the time. And so it was so organized that they taped us going down the first hole. And I can still remember, because I think Ron was either the first or second guy off of the first group. And they said, now, representing Willow Creek in Spring, Texas, Ron Hanson, but in brogue. And I mean, it was just like, whoa, it was like that guy at the British Open every year. So we're going down the first tee, and the guy he's playing with has about a 7-iron into the first green. It's a real easy hole. And so he asked for a 7-iron. His caddy gave him a 9, and he hit it right into the little burn that goes across the thing. Well, it turns out the caddy was inebriated, and they had a big fight on the first hole, the guy. And so the caddy walked off. They had to get another caddy, and it was crazy, but it was quite memorable. We had, after that, there's a little place off the side of St. Andrews, I mean the great Grand Course Hotel, called the Jigger Inn. And a guy named Chubby Chandler, who is the agent for Lee Westwood, Patrick Harrington, I think Graham McDowell, I can't think of the one guy, but Brian Darren Clark. So there was some multiple adult beverages consumed that night, and we walked back out the next morning, and my caddy looked at me, and it turned out Ron and I were going to be partners that day, and we'd done very well the day before. And so my caddy looked at me and said, "What is wrong with you?" And then Ron's guy looked at her. He said, "No, don't tell me. We got a lot of money bet on you guys." So I'm going to tell you, if you ever play golf in Scotland, you got to take a caddy, because no matter what, they believe you're handicapped and they bet on it. And I mean, if you're playing at Turnberry, all the caddies from the first groups got their heads over the fence watching what's going on the last hole. So it's crazy. But I will tell you that on that trip, and he'll remember this, there were several, we played softball in Hyde Park. Billy got like 5 baseball gloves and a couple of bats, and so it was the Americans and the Deutsche Bank secretaries against the bankers and the drivers. And they had last at bats, and we held them off at the last bit to tie 18-18. So it was a lot of fun. That's one of the things that when he says the stuff that he always remembers, and it's playing softball in Hyde Park. I'll pass on that. So look, probably something is not a little PV. But the best part was when we got home, Jane and Sarah had dressed up like hookers. I mean, and if you see the picture, you would think that's exactly what they look like. And they were out patrolling outside the entrance, the offshore stuff. And they were going hi to everybody was talking to them. And then we got out, and we had been sleeping the whole way over there, because to do that you have to get kind of inebriated. And so we just walked outside in the glare. It was like these two hookers are rushing at us, and it took us at least 3 or 4 seconds to realize it was Jane and Sarah, right? So on the way home, Ron says, you know, I got a hankering for Mexican food. So we go into Papasitas on I-45, and the people look at us like we are crazy. They took us to, probably as far back to you guys in the back standing from the front door to this little thing in the corner, and that's how we got our food. And there was a rumor that went around later that somebody had seen Ron Hanson in Papasitas with 2 hookers. He was a heck of a guy, a great friend, and I appreciate your listening to what I have to say today. Thank you.
I could listen to Bill Phillip tell stories all day long, and I thought we were going to have to. Our next speaker, and we only have like 2 more, so you're okay. We're going to be fine. We'll get out of here. Son-in-law. Those usually are the biggest losers a guy can have, is a son-in-law. Well, Joseph hit the big time because they've asked him to speak, so he's done everything right, or Christy said it was okay. One of the 2 things happened. But Joseph, come on up here. And by the way, Joseph and Sarah planned all this, and Christy was involved, and Eric, but all this stuff, he's been running around. He's done a great job putting this thing together, I'll promise you.
So Ron was, I think, a lot of things to a lot of people, and I just can't tell you how lucky I feel to have had the opportunity for nearly half of my life to spend quite a bit of time with Ron. You know, you've heard a lot of people speak about his integrity, and his fairness, and his honesty, and you could stand here all day and talk about the good qualities that Ron had. When I first met Ron, I've been dating his daughter for a few months, and I was invited out to Northampton to go to a Christmas party. And Penny and Gordon can't be here today, but they were hosting the party. And as I walked in, I had an opportunity to meet Sarah, and she said, well, Ron's back there burning the chicken with Gordon. She said, make sure, and she looked at me, she said, make sure that he at least cooks it halfway through. So we went back, and as I'm walking into this party, I walked into a community that I'd never really seen before or experienced. There was people everywhere having a great time. Everybody was talking to everybody. You could tell there were deep, genuine, loving relationships. And maybe a little before, but at least then I knew that I really wanted to be a part of it. We went out afterwards to Ron and Sarah's house to show it to me, and I don't know if I'd ever been in a bigger house. And I'm walking through, and Christy's showing me around, and she said, this is the butler's pantry. And I thought, oh my God, they have a butler? I definitely want to be a part of this. But that was the first time I met Ron. One of the things that I grew to know about him is just how important his family was to him. And the way he treated them, always, as Jessica mentioned, giving you his time, putting his energy and his love into you, having conversations and arguments that you wouldn't have solved without Google. Thank you, Google. But he was a family man in the truest sense of the word. And he inspired me to conduct myself in a certain way with my family. Sarah is one of the strongest women I've ever met. What I saw, the life that I watched them live together and share together, was just so inspiring for a young married man. I knew that you would have your ups and you would have your challenges, but through strength and dedication and honesty, that true loving relationships can work and they can last. So I'm a terrible golfer. So every now and then Ron would invite me out. I think Sarah probably told him he had to. So early on, he says, I'm sitting on the side of a hill, and he says, oh, well, take your 7-iron, put it in the back of your stance, hit it like this, do that. So I hit a ball, and I was this close to the hole, and I about jumped over the hill. I run, and I smack Ron, give him a big high five. He's like, God damn, you got to hit at least like 60 more shots. But not being a very good golfer, there were a few things I did get to share with Ron. One of our favorite pastimes was to go to musicals and promptly fall asleep. But I got to spend a lot of time with Ron, and towards the end I would come over and we'd just sit and we'd watch whatever dumb television show we were watching. And having 3 kids in a house and just busy with life, one day when I got up, I said, Ron, thank you for your company. And he said, well, I wasn't much company. I said, Ron, right now this is my favorite place to be. It's quiet. We get to nap. We watch television. But that was the thing that he loved to do, is he would share his time with you. He would sincerely be interested in you. And for that, I'm forever grateful. Best father-in-law I ever had.
Thank you, Joseph. Our last speaker, except we do have one extra little surprise for you after he's done. Our last speaker, we put him there, I don't know why, a reason. I'm hoping he turns this into something nice. Brett Baskey and Ron Hanson, they're inseparable in my mind. Since '97, there wouldn't be a board of directors meeting that I was in, and I was on a lot of boards, that I didn't get Ron and Brett's opinion on where the direction of the club should go. How should I vote? What should I do? I trust those 2 guys with making decisions for Willow Creek. Brett, he's a loser, but he is Willow Creek. Ron is 1A, he is A. He developed this thing. Club Corp has taken it even farther, and thank you for them. I saw some of those guys here. I saw our pro. Nice to be here, Chris. You had nothing else to do. But Brett, it means a lot to me. He always has his sale before Club Corp so he can take the money from people and not give Club Corp a chance to match the sale. He's a genius in salesmanship, but he was a true friend for me and for Ron. Brett Baskey.
Thanks, Rich. Well, everybody said everything I had on this piece of paper, so I appreciate y'all coming, and I'm out. Actually, Kevin, you know that only your hairdresser knows for sure. Just letting you know that. I had, and my whole family had the honor of knowing Ron and Sarah and their family for 35 years. And for 3 of those, Ron and I were really good friends. It was pretty good. But, you know, Ron and Sarah, and I know we're here for Ron, but Ron and Sarah are a team. And a lot of this is Ron and Sarah. My sister, Sarah. Some of the most generous people you will ever meet. I mean, whether it was a family member, a relative, a club member, a club employee. If someone needed help, Ron and Sarah were both there to help. And it was just incredible what they did for so many people, financially or just as an inspiration. They always had an open door policy at their house. Before they moved to the big house, and they were at the other big house with the tennis courts and, you know, basketball goals and all that good stuff. Literally, you could stop by there anytime you wanted. They were there with a smile and a cocktail and open arms. But don't go Saturday mornings. That was, right, Sarah? Don't go Saturday mornings. You might be shocked. They were the ultimate hosts. I mean, whether it was a Super Bowl party, it was a New Year's Eve party, it was a party to plan a party. That was Ron and Sarah, and that was always their home. You know, and Ron would hang till the very, very end always. I don't care. He'd wait till the last person would leave. He might be asleep for 2 hours, but he would still hang there, even though he was sleeping. He wouldn't leave. And Ron was known, and you've heard this before, and I'll say it again, Ron is and was the godfather at Willow Creek. Whether a person was a member there 15 years or 6 months, it was amazing how quickly and how much respect that new member would have for Ron. It was very, very impressive. When Joe Bowden passed away in 2006, one of Ron's best friends and a great man, they used to play in all the spring member, the fall member. Did I go out here?
Well, that's about it.
Okay, yeah. All right, so let me talk a little louder, I guess. Hello? Okay. So they used to play in all the members together, and then we got to when Joe passed away in 2006. I had the honor. I knew this was going to happen. I had the honor to actually be Ron's partner for 14 years in the spring member. I couldn't have both. I was just happy to have one. And I hate to brag, but Ron and I did very, very, very well in those tournaments. Financially did very well. However, Ron always insisted, and I really never understood this, he always insisted that he pick up the money for the Calcutta at the golf shop. And I'm like, well, that's fine. You know, you want to pay the money, that's fine. So then he'd bring me my envelope. I'd open it up and I'd look at it and I'd go, wow. Thank you. Sorry. I'd go, wow, I thought we did better than this, but hey, we won. Well, if you've ever looked at Ron's house today and you look at my house, I'm just saying. And I also had a tradition, a tradition that when I played at a member or a member guest, you must dress alike. We had to match. So we'd have the matching hat, we'd have the matching shirt. I was too cheap to give him the shorts, but I told him what color to put on. And that's just the way it was going to be. Well, one year was in the spring, we're playing. It was a little cool outside, and we had to put on some outerwear, which that broke my heart because our outerwear didn't match. I was too cheap to give him that too. So we're playing, and we started playing a few holes, and Ron, he looked really restricted when he was swinging. I just couldn't understand. I thought maybe it was the outerwear. I know he wasn't choking. He never choked. I mean, back in the day, he was a 10 that played like a 6 or a 7, I can tell you. So I just kind of let it go, and then finally, the sun came out. We took our outerwear off, and we finally realized I had Ron's shirt on, he had mine on. I looked like I was wearing a dress, and Ron looked like a busted can of biscuits. It's awful. So we had to finish that way because we weren't going to get our dress in front of each other. But that was always one of my favorite stories for that event. I'll miss that. I really, that was a highlight of my year, was that event and playing with my best friend Ron. Anyway, so I do want to finish with something here, and I would like to talk longer, but I know we've had a lot of great speakers. It's been awesome. It's been a beautiful day, beautiful family. So proud to know the whole family. But I'd like to have a little audience participation for the last part of this, and I'd like everybody to raise their right hand and keep it raised, please. If you could just raise your right hand. I had a very, very dear friend, other than Ron, who always told me, he said, Brett, in your lifetime, when you have a true friend, you need to cherish that friend. Because in your lifetime, you'll be lucky if you have a handful of those type of friends. Well, can you imagine out in this audience right now how many right hands Ron is a part of? I would say about 99.9. Ron, we love you. We will all miss you, but we will never forget you. Thank you.
Billy, can you come on back up? I asked him to give his speech again. Oh, it was such a sweet, and you make fun of people. Don't make fun of people.
A very important part of the Hanson family couldn't be with us today. You guys from the club may or may not know Steve Moreno. He is Sarah's nephew. They're the same age because she was really late and he was early. Oh, is it still on? Okay. They couldn't come today because his daughter-in-law got COVID and they were all together last Saturday. So I called him and asked him to send me what he would have liked to have said. And I'm going to read it for you. I'll try to he's got some inflection points that I'll try the best that I can. If you knew him, he was full of inflections. My reflections of Unc, and that's what he called Bron, as we affectionately tabbed him years ago, floated through all of the things that we know about Ron Hanson. He was generous, kind, benevolent, and a to-the-point kind of guy. There was not a lot of fluff or apology about him when he had a point to make, but he could offer much-needed critique without hurting your feelings. Much. His poignant offerings were of higher value, were often punctuated at the beginning with a ever so familiar, hey, hey, hey. That was kind of like, slow down. I could go on about the many things that will be addressed by others today, but Lauren and I are lamenting the fact that we cannot be with you in person. It became evident that we needed to broach the important facets of our 35-plus year closeness to Unc and Aunt Sarah. Unc learned very on about my serious defect in patience. He began working on my patience on the golf course. Took me for a while to understand why I was always on his team. And after reflecting on several times, like I would be on my third shot, about 20 yards off the tee, and Ron would say, just slow down, take your time. And then he would slowly turn to me and say, slow down, pay attention. I was kind of a golf course albatross. He painfully put up with my morbid golf skills on many occasions, and I always came away with a bit improvement personally, if not on my skill level. He never even laughed at me as others did, Scott. When I would send the ball into the side of a home, bouncing down the street on 18 or into the caddy shack at Ocho Rios with the force of a rocket-propelled grenade. He found time to gently guide me on being more patient with my children and Lauren. I could commit a gaffe of sorts, being an overbearing, obnoxious bore, and he would address that several ways, but he would always do it with me personally and not in front of anybody else. Mentoring a hopeless cause on the links, but making a huge difference in my patience with those closest to me and subsequently in my behavior with others. Unc took the time to support both of us in our chosen careers. Lauren was a teacher and Stevie was a fire department captain. We will be on the golf course today remembering Ron. They started teeing off at 1. Steve, Lauren, his son Stephen, and his daughter Sierra. And on each tee, they are taking a shot of rum and Coke, which is Ron's favorite drink. Now, I'm not sure they'll finish their tee, but they're going to do their damnedest to try. And one of his side notes is, if you're looking around, 4, because it could make it here. Please know that we are not here in person. We're with you all in spirit. Sarah, Christy, Eric, Thomas, please feel the love that we send you now. Uncle once told me that what I did for a living was far more important than what he did. He always said that he didn't do anything big. Well, we all know better. He never lost his patience or presence, but for us, we have the value and benefit of his wisdom as long as we are here. And he touched our lives, so many lives, of many who were and part of our daily lives each day. Ron had a famous saying, and Stevie closes with this, and I know this is kind of what he said to me last time we talked. At the end of the day, it is what it is. His love and guidance will live with us and through us, and we're better for having had him as our friends. Thank you, Unc, for your patience, and now mine. So, I can tell you, when Ron and I last talked, right now, he just finished a Daytona, with Spencer Clements, Joe Bowden, Dean Scudder. He's collected his money from Norm Baskey for the football pool. And he's about to sit down with Dick Harlow and Robert Cullens for a Hollywood. And you know what? He's already Chesterized. He was a heck of a guy.
All right, that concludes our program. If there's anybody that feels a special need to get up here and say something, they can. I take it by your silence, we don't have anybody. But if there is somebody that would like to come up and say something, this is your open mic. No singing, but open mic. No? Does that mean he's leaving or coming?
No, Russell's coming.
All right. I was always taught, never give the mic to somebody you don't trust. This could be bad.
If you don't know the answer, don't ask the question.
Yeah, mine is real short, and Ron was a good friend for way over 30 years. And I raised my kids, my 2 daughters, that I'm the same person at the club as I am at home. And that's why my girls have the street smarts. And they're just awesome, and your family is amazing. And Ron was the same all the time. A quick story, Tom Harden had a tournament, and he had a social at his house before the tournament, and Ron hadn't met my wife yet, and so Stacy shows up. She's not a golfer, she's not much of a drinker, and Ron comes up, and I introduce Stacy to Ron, and Ron goes, you know, he's very cordial. He says, Stacy, he says, Russell goes fishing 2 days a week. He plays golf 4 days a week. Why do you let him get away with this? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you're getting me in trouble, Ron. And Stacy's a little bit smarter than I am. She looks up at Ron and goes, he needs his time off. He works really hard, Ron. But anyway, he was the same to everybody. And at home, I'm sure. So he was a good man.
Thank you, Russell.
Thanks, Russell. Anybody else? Okay. Uh-oh. The pilot's coming. He just flew in today from Cut and Shoot to be present with us. Randy Nairn.
First of all, it's really an honor to hear all these stories, and so I've heard a lot of stories about the generosity of Sarah and Ron. And Ray knows this story because we've had 3 or 4 charity tournaments out at Willow Creek, and Ron and Sarah would always sit in the first or second row, and we were raising a bunch of money for really good causes, and Ron would say, $5,000. And Sarah would go, $6,000. And Ron would go, $7,000. True story.
Absolutely.
So I'd look at Ron and, Ron, we're good 7. Sarah would go, 7,500. So we'd auction off something, and we'd bring up the next item, and Ron would go, $5,000. And Ray was the auctioneer, so Ray could make it sound really funny and pair Sarah and Ron against each other. And they were determined who was going to contribute the most money for those great causes. I've never really seen anything like that, so thank you so much.
Anybody else? Sherry Lowe? Sherry? I haven't seen Sherry. I'm sure she's here. Hi, Sherry. Come on. The only person with a hat. I should have known. She's going to close us with a benediction. And we have some special treat for you after the prayer.
Thank you, Ray. I just have one point of clarification. There are 2 females up here today,
Yes, you're right. Sorry.
I appreciate that very much. In closing, to try to tie all of this together, Sarah asked me to just say a few words, and for me that's very difficult, and I only have 20 pages. But I so appreciate the two Bretts that came up here and brought notes. So I have just a few notes because I don't want to miss anything special that I want to say on behalf of a lot of people. First of all, what a beautiful day here in this place, a day to celebrate the life of Ron. We heard wonderful testimonials to a life so beautifully lived, heartwarming, moving, and entertaining. Lived by one of God's faithful servants, Ron, a great man, so richly blessed with so many gifts and talents, truly accomplished in such a gentle way, who marvelously placed his indelibly etched signature on the hearts of all those who loved him and whom he loved. As beloved husband to Sarah, blessed dad to Eric and wife Jess, Christy and husband Joseph, and son Thomas and girlfriend Lindsay, as well as endeared Papa to all those beautiful grandchildren, and so many other meaningful impacting roles we have heard mentioned today as such a very popular member of Willow Creek, most closely aligned with the famous or infamous Daytona golf group, but none more meaningful to him than his family. So to help close this celebration of life ceremony, I stand before you not because I knew Ron well, not because Rick knew Ron well, though we wished we could have, but because behind every great man is a great woman. And through the Willow Creek Ladies Golf Association, where I met Sarah years ago, she's become one of the most precious people in my life. And what a love story she and Ron share. So having served at the pleasure of our president last year, Sarah, she made this special request of me. So I am humbled. And by the way, if Sarah asked you to do something, would you say no? I did not, I could not, and I would not. I'm here to help honor her beloved husband, Ron, and her family. But maybe it's also because she knows firsthand I've had tremendous experience personally through so many trials of blessings and pain of having to say goodbye to many close loved ones. You know, I've heard it said that many people come into a person's life for a reason, or it could be for a season, or it could be for a lifetime. And I believe that. And in our case, it started with a reason, golf. Then it became a season of giving back to our club and giving back to the community. And then she and Ron took a trip to play Whistling Straits in Wisconsin. They loved it. I was so happy, yes, because while I'm in Texas for 40 years, thanks to my husband Rick, and I had to wear my hat because, Ron, I don't think you'd know who this was if I didn't. I'm also a cheesehead, like our pro, Chris. I'm even wearing my cheesehead earrings. And again, while I may not have known Ron well, I know I loved what I saw. We loved what we saw. We admired everything he stood for. All the things you heard about today. Such a good man. And he and Sarah like bookends. In fact, I have to tell you quickly, I've heard about the generosity. We've seen it firsthand, Rick and I having attended some of the charitable events at Willow Creek. Some of them in Calcutta with our Ray Burgess as the hilarious auctioneer. But one time, and likely not the only time, as we've heard Randy and Aaron say today, Ron and Sarah were actually bidding against each other for various teams in a member-member event, including for my husband Rick's team. When it got to a certain bid, Rick overheard Sarah say, "They're not that good." So they both stopped bidding on him, and Rick, to this day, agrees with him and apologizes to whomever won that bid. Just Ron is such a down-to-earth kind of guy. We've heard all stories about that. The amazing trip that he and Sarah took with the family to Mexico. But one of the last times I saw Ron, we were Krogering. I was at the self-checkout. He's walking out, and that big boyish smile was walking by with a bag of groceries. He said, "I'm out shopping for Sarah today." Everything seemed right with the world, and that was after that wonderful trip to Mexico. I saw him again when I came to visit Sarah and waved to him on the patio. He was reading, smoking a cigar, and yes, I believe there was wine involved. And then the last time I saw him was the late in the afternoon. He had come home from the hospital just this month, after Rick and I went to pick up dinner from the Olive Garden that Donna Murillo and I had been planning on for Sarah and the family. It was a remarkable day. As you heard, the Daytona Golf Buddies had been there to welcome him home, and it became a party. It became a miracle. Sarah was so excited to show the treasured photo of Ron's Daytona group that they brought to him, and then a jar of golf balls, each one signed by members of the Daytona group. It was such a gift to Ron, to Sarah, and to all. And so, upon learning that story, our new president, Rita Gosh, came up with this loving idea for you, Sarah. Each lady in the LGA here today has brought a signed golf ball just for you, to signify our love for you and that we're here for you. As for mine, it wasn't that easy to find a golf ball that looked like a hunk of cheese, but I did, and it will be signed and placed with all of the others. More golf balls are coming, and we prepare to launch this year's LGA theme, Life's a Beach. Right now, to everyone, it must feel, and it does feel, like the waves are crashing in on the shore. But our wish and our prayer for you all, and especially this beautiful family, is that the waters become more calm amidst a tide of emotions that we know will always ebb and flow. Oh, and the best tide of all, roll tide. While we can never understand the reason that someone so full of life, so giving, so blessed, so loved is taken from us, there's only one way through all of our days on this journey called life, and it is faith. So we turn to God and to the Bible to help us make sense of life and death and things that hurt so much. May there be great comfort in these ageless passages. From Romans, we know that in all things God works for the good of all of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. And from Timothy, this is Ron. As for me, my life has already been poured out as an offering to God. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. And if I may add, I have gotten to golf with so many wonderful people, so many rounds of golf in so many awesome places, and I have remained faithful. And now the prize, the crown of righteousness the Lord has given to me and to all who believe. And lastly, for each one here with a heart who grieves. The book of Matthew, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Now hear these sweet words written in what's named a letter from heaven. And while it may not be said exactly as Ron would say it from heaven, for it is in the form of an ode, just had to offer this one, for his Sarah, his children, his grandchildren, his many friends, for all who love Ron and all he loved. It goes like this. Fill not your hearts with pain and sorrow, but remember me in every tomorrow. Remember the joy, the laughter, the smiles. I've only gone to rest a little while. Although my leaving causes pain and grief, my going has eased my hurt and given me relief. So dry your eyes and remember me, not as I am now, but as I used to be, because I will remember you all and look on with a smile. Understand in your hearts, I've only gone to rest a little while. As long as I have the love of each of you, I can live my life in the hearts of all of you. Amen.
Oh, they tell me our home far beyond the skies, and they tell me our home far away. Oh, they tell me our home where no storm clouds rise. Oh, they tell me of an unclouded day. Oh, the land of cloudless days. Oh, the land of an unclouded sky. Oh, they tell me of a home where no storm clouds rise. Oh, they tell me of an unclouded day.
ready to party.
Oh, they tell me of a home where my friends have gone. And they tell me of that land far away, where the trees live in eternal bloom, shed the fragrance through the unclouded day. Oh, the land of cloudless day. Oh, the land of unclouded sky. Oh, they tell me of a home where no storm clouds lie.
Facing fears with truth makes it so much easier. So, and I know my father-in-law well enough to know he'd want me to face it head on. So.
Oh, they tell me of an unclouded day.
Ron, we love you. We will all miss you, but we will never forget you.